In a previous lesson, you have learned the order of operations. And within the order of operations, the first thing that we do is we work with parentheses. In this lesson, we're going to take that a little bit further, and we are going to work with now different types of grouping symbols. So not just parentheses, but also brackets, fraction bars, etc. All right, so let's jump in. With grouping symbols, we need a definition first. And our definition is simply a device or something used to enclose an expression that should be simplified first. So, for example, a grouping symbol could be parentheses. So we would have maybe something like this: 5 times parentheses 6 minus 4. And as we learned with order of operations, we do the parentheses first. So we do 6 minus 4 to get 2, and then we multiply 5 times 2 to get 10. Now, instead of parentheses, we could also use what is called brackets. And that would look like this. So this little symbol enclosing the 6 minus 4 is not a parentheses, but a bracket. Now, it looks different, but the purpose and the use of this is the same as with parentheses. It is simply serving as a grouping symbol where we know to do 6 minus 4 first. So we get the same answer. 6 minus 4 is 2, 5 times 2 is 10. A third grouping symbol we could use is a simple fraction bar. So for example, 11 plus 5 divided by 14 minus 6. So this fraction bar is serving as a form of grouping symbol because we are taking this entire top, this entire group up here, dividing it by this entire thing in the bottom, the 14 minus 6. So you don't need to write the parentheses because the fraction bar is serving that same purpose. So we know that we need to simplify the top and the bottom separately first before we start trying to divide things. So 11 plus 5 on the top is 16. 14 minus 6 on the bottom would give me 8. So we have 16 over 8, which this now means division. So 16 divided by 8 would now equal 2. So the key is make sure you simplify the top and the bottom first before you start dividing things out. A common mistake, once we get into other types of fractions throughout this course, is people will mistakenly start dividing first before they start adding and subtracting things. So just be careful that you do follow order of operations with fractions. Now the next question would be, what do you do if you have multiple grouping symbols? So bottom line, what we're doing is we're starting with the innermost grouping symbol first and then working your way out after that. So here we see that this 8 plus 2 is the innermost grouping symbol because that is surrounded by this other grouping symbol, the bracket. Okay, so we start with this first and then work your way out to the 50 divided by 8 plus 2 after. So 8 plus 2, we do that first. That gives me 10. So now we have 50 divided by 10. So from here we finish this bracket, this grouping symbol. Do that first before we subtract that from 20. So 50 divided by 10 is 5. Now we subtract 20 minus 5 to get 15. Okay, here's another example where now we throw in also evaluating expressions. So here we are given this expression and we're told to evaluate if t is 1, x is negative 3, y is 5, and z is 4. So we're doing the same thing we just did. The only thing is we need to plug in the numbers first before we can start evaluating. So instead of 3 times t here at the beginning, we now have 3 times 1. Instead of 6 times z, we now have 6 times 4. And instead of x plus y in the parentheses, we now have negative 3 plus 5. So same thing, we're just plugging in the numbers first. Now, when you simplify, you begin with the innermost parentheses first. So within the brackets, we also have this parentheses right here. So this would be inside of the bigger bracket. So we begin with this parentheses first. Negative 3 plus 5 would be a positive 2. So this is 2. Alright, once you do that, now you can work with multiplication and division within the brackets. So 6 times 4 would give me 24. Okay, and I guess we've done the 3 times 1 as well. That's just going to be 3. But we have 24 divided by 2. Now that gives me 12. Alright, and then the 3 times 1 is going to be 3. We've taken care of the parentheses and the brackets, so now we can do everything on the outside. And so we've already done that. 3 times 1 is 3. Now we can subtract 3 minus 12 to get negative 9. And that's my solution. So really the same thing as order of operations. The only thing different in this lesson is the fact now we have multiple sets of grouping symbols, not just one set of parentheses.